Imagine waking up tomorrow to headlines that a major oil route has been blocked, tankers stalled, refineries slowing down, gas prices surging by the hour. Within minutes, markets react. Within hours, drivers begin lining up at gas stations. But what if I told you that deep underground, in massive hidden caverns, millions of barrels of oil are waiting for exactly this moment? There's a global emergency system designed to prevent panic, stabilize economies, and keep society moving when supply chains snap. Today, we're going inside the secret oil reserve system that stands between crisis and chaos. Hidden far from public attention, there is a system designed precisely for moments like this. Deep underground and in carefully guarded storage sites, massive amounts of oil wait quietly. These are emergency fuel reserves, and a nation's backup plan when normal energy supplies are interrupted. Emergency fuel reserves are large stockpiles of oil maintained by governments to protect their economies and national security during serious supply disruptions. They are not meant for everyday price fluctuations or minor shortages. Instead, they exist for extraordinary situations, wars, natural disasters, political conflicts, or sudden global supply shocks that threaten stability. Their purpose is simple but powerful: to prevent panic, stabilize markets, and buy time when the unexpected happens. The need for such reserves became clear in the 1970s during a major oil crisis. At that time, several oil-producing nations reduced exports, causing fuel shortages and sharp price increases worldwide. Gas stations ran dry. Long lines of cars stretched down highways. But economies struggled. That crisis taught governments an important lesson. Relying completely on daily imports without a backup plan leaves a country vulnerable. In response to that crisis, major energy-importing nations formed the International Energy Agency, often called the IEA. The IEA was created specifically to coordinate collective responses to oil supply disruptions. Today, its member countries agree to maintain emergency oil stocks and cooperate during global energy emergencies. One of its most important requirements is that each member country must hold reserves equal to at least 90 days of their net oil imports. This shared commitment creates a coordinated safety net across much of the industrialized world. While the reserves are crucial, an important fact to be aware of is that most emergency reserves store crude oil rather than gasoline or diesel. Crude oil is the raw, unrefined form of petroleum extracted from the ground. It must be processed in refineries to become usable fuels such as gasoline, jet fuel, diesel, or heating oil. Storing crude oil offers flexibility. Once released, it can be refined into whichever fuel is most urgently needed. Some countries do maintain smaller reserves of refined fuels, especially for quick local access, but crude oil makes up the bulk of global emergency stockpiles. The storage methods used for these reserves are both impressive and carefully engineered. In many cases, oil is stored deep underground in salt caverns. These caverns are created within thick layers of natural salt formations. A salt is ideal for storage because it is stable, self-sealing, and resistant to leaks. Engineers hollow out large underground chambers by injecting water into the salt and removing the dissolved material. The empty spaces are then filled with oil. From the surface, these sites may look ordinary, a few pipes and small buildings, but below ground, they can hold millions of barrels of oil safely and securely. Storing oil underground has several advantages. It protects the oil from weather, natural disasters, and potential attacks. It reduces evaporation and contamination. It also allows enormous quantities of oil to be stored in one location. Some reserves are connected directly to pipelines, ports, and refineries so that oil can move quickly into the energy system when needed. However, building and maintaining these reserves is expensive. Governments must purchase the oil, maintain storage facilities, monitor safety systems, and ensure security. Over time, equipment must be inspected and upgraded. Oil quality must also be checked to ensure it remains usable. Because of these costs, governments manage reserves carefully, balancing preparedness with financial responsibility. While many reserves are directly owned and managed by governments, some countries meet part of their emergency stock requirements through mandatory industry-held inventories. In these systems, private oil companies are legally required to maintain minimum stock levels that can be directed for emergency use. This blended model expands total available reserves while sharing the financial burden between the public and private sectors. Releasing oil from an emergency reserve is a serious decision. It is not done lightly or frequently. Governments typically consider a release only when there is a significant disruption that threatens economic stability or national security. Examples include large-scale natural disasters that shut down production facilities, wars that disrupt global exports, or sudden supply shortages that cause extreme price spikes. The decision to release oil often involves high-level officials, energy experts, and economic advisors. They analyze the severity of the disruption, expected duration, market conditions, and potential consequences. If the situation meets legal and policy criteria, a release is authorized. But here's the part most people don't think about. Emergency reserves are measured in months, not years. Who gets priority? Airlines, trucking, agriculture, emergency services? If a disruption became permanent, those underground caverns would slowly empty. Oil would still exist in the world, but not necessarily where it's needed. And that's when governments move from stabilization to survival strategy. Let's look at what actually happens when governments pull the trigger and release the oil. If you want to uncover the hidden systems that keep our world running and explore powerful stories that shape our future, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications because the next system we uncover might be the one you depend on most. Once a release is authorized, energy companies are invited to bid for the oil, either purchasing it outright or borrowing it temporarily with the agreement to return it later. The crude oil is then transported through pipelines or ships to refineries. At the refineries, it is processed into usable fuels and distributed through normal commercial channels. But the release of emergency reserves takes time. Fuel does not instantly appear at gas stations. However, even the announcement of a release can calm markets. Oil markets are influenced not only by physical supply, but also by expectations. When traders know that additional supply is entering the market, fear often decreases, and prices may stabilize. Many countries, particularly members of the International Energy Agency, aim to maintain emergency reserves equal to at least 90 days of their net oil imports. This standard provides a critical cushion if international supply is interrupted. For nations heavily dependent on foreign oil, that 90-day buffer can mean the difference between stability and economic shock. It provides time to repair infrastructure, secure alternative supplies, increase domestic production, or implement emergency conservation measures. Emergency fuel reserves are not designed to permanently replace lost production. They are a stabilization bridge. If a disruption lasted for many months or years without alternative solutions, reserves would eventually be depleted. That is why they are used strategically and carefully, to buy time, not to solve structural supply problems. Because energy markets are global, disruptions in one region can affect prices worldwide. Through the International Energy Agency, member countries can coordinate collective releases of oil. When multiple nations release reserves simultaneously, the combined impact sends a powerful signal to markets. This coordinated action has been used during wars, natural disasters, and major geopolitical conflicts. The goal is not only to add physical supply, but to demonstrate international unity and reduce panic before it spirals. Just knowing that governments have substantial reserves can discourage speculation and prevent extreme price spikes. In this way, reserves act not only as a physical buffer, but also as a confidence-building tool. Emergency reserves have been used repeatedly. In 1991, during the Gulf War, the United States released roughly 17 million barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to stabilize markets. In 2005, after Hurricane Katrina crippled Gulf Coast production and refineries, about 20 million barrels were released to offset supply disruptions. In 2011, during the Libya crisis, the International Energy Agency coordinated a collective release of 60 million barrels among member nations, half of it from the United States. But the largest release in history came in 2022. Following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the U.S. authorized the release of approximately 180 million barrels over several months, nearly a quarter of its total reserve at the time. Globally, coordinated releases that year exceeded 240 million barrels. These numbers are massive, and yet, even 180 million barrels represents only a few days of global oil consumption. That's the scale of the system we're dealing with. Just having the oil reserves may not always be enough to weather an energy crisis. To make the released crude oil useful to solve a crisis, the refineries and transportation networks, such as pipelines and ports, must be functional to refine and move the oil where it is needed. Until alternative energy systems fully replace oil across all sectors, emergency fuel reserves will remain an important tool for stability. Most people rarely think about emergency fuel reserves. They do not see the underground caverns, the monitoring systems, or the strategic planning meetings. They only notice when fuel is unavailable, and ideally, reserves prevent that from happening. Their success is measured not by visibility, but by stability. When a crisis occurs and gas stations remain open, flights continue, and deliveries reach stores, emergency reserves may be quietly doing their job. They operate behind the scenes, stepping in just long enough to prevent panic and give leaders time to respond. Now, in the end, emergency fuel reserves represent more than stored oil. They represent preparation in a world filled with uncertainty. They are a reminder that modern life depends deeply on reliable energy and that planning ahead can prevent chaos when disruptions arise. Deep beneath the ground, in vast salt caverns and secure storage facilities, millions of barrels of oil wait patiently. They may remain untouched for years. They may be used only once in a generation. But their presence provides reassurance. They are not a permanent solution to global energy challenges, but they are a powerful tool. They are a bridge between crisis and recovery, between uncertainty and resilience. And when the unexpected happens, when headlines bring sudden concern, it is often these hidden reserves that help keep the lights on, the engines running, and society moving forward.